another episode of the Trailblazers Experience podcast, and I'm really excited to have my guest today, KRISI SMITH, who is co-founder and owner of the award-winning independent tea company, Bird and Blend Tea Co. KRISI wears many hats within the business, and she also calls herself a Chief Tea Mixologist and is also venturing into the public speaking space. So a sunny welcome to KRISI. Hi.
Hello, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to have the sunshine out, isn't it?
I know. We've been waiting. And for those watching globally who live in sunny locations, you made the right decision. Basically, you're doing the right thing. Stay there, travel to colder countries, but go back to where it's warm. I think it's a different energy, isn't it? In when the weather's out.
Yeah, I just feel, just uplifted, and you want to kind of be outside a bit more, and yeah, it just makes everything have a bit of a happy glow, I think. So,
Definitely. And I've introduced you, and it's so interesting when I was researching for the podcast, and there are three things that always amaze me. One, anyone who decides to start their own business, how they came up with the idea, you know, was there a golden goose there with money? Was there secret funding, or was it really starting from scratch and building up? And then the other thing, calling yourself a tea mixologist. I mean, mixology, all I know is about, cocktails and, and drinks. So I'm really excited to delve into what experiences shaped you when you were growing up. And then we can talk about how you started your own business.
yeah, that sounds great. Shall I just jump in?
Yeah, go on.
Whole life story? No.
Let's talk about your teenage years, because I think, when you're growing up, you're shaped by your parents, but I think it's sort of like when you're hitting that puberty, teenage years, that is where things happen that sort of shape the trajectory of your life. So let's start there.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, to be honest. And it's only as I've got older and more confident in myself as an adult woman that I've looked back and been able to reflect on kind of what drove me to have this passion to start a business. And a lot of it, does go back to childhood. And
Mm,
I think when I was a teenager, I was fortunate enough to be fairly academic, so I'm able to take exams and things like that. That's what I mean about academic. When I'm deliberately not using the word intelligence, because I think it's completely different. But I'm
yes.
fortunate enough to be able to, um, yeah, take exams and write and things like that. So I did well at school,
Mm,
but I was also really troublesome. I was, I was creative. I was a bit rebellious. I was desperate to escape and travel the world and get as far away from home as possible. And I was constantly challenging everyone around me. Didn't want to knuckle down and get on a grad scheme or something that seemed more normal. I guess I think looking back, I was really really fighting against all of that, and
mm,
I ended up working loads and loads of jobs as a as a teenager and a young adult. I had like over 30 jobs before I was 20. Like, well, I started the business at 24, but yeah, so loads of jobs, and I was just trying to get some cash in the bank to escape. I wanted to buy a car. I wanted to go and travel the world, which I was, again, I worked very, very hard the year after college I worked 4 jobs to save up to go traveling. So I went around the world for a year at 19,
wow.
which was an amazing adventure. Um, and I think I was part just trying to find out who I was and what my place in the world. I
Mm,
didn't feel like the things that were being described as my options were fit with me. I felt found it really difficult to be kind of described in the negative of
mm,
asking too many questions, having too much of an opinion, all of that sort of thing. It was like Chrissy's smart and could do well, but if she changed this about herself. And
mm,
I think what I see now looking back is those words that are used to describe you to the negative as a young challenging adult are actually the things that are celebrated in entrepreneurship.
mhm,
I didn't know it. I didn't know this was what I was doing, but I think I basically thought, if I want to do something that fits right with me, I'm going to have to build something myself. And I'm going to show you all that I don't have to change who I am, and that I can build a really happy, successful business based on my terms.
Hmm.
And that was the driving force, really. It wasn't really anything to do with tea, or it definitely wasn't anything to do with money at the start.
Mm.
It was that burning desire to kind of put two fingers up to the world, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And you've touched on an important point. And I think it's still happening now where conventional education, it's really you're just ticking boxes when you're in primary, secondary school. And you have this thing when you think about what is it actually that I learned there, apart from maybe you say English, English literature, learning to articulate yourself, explain yourself, apply yourself. But what are the traits, the skills that you get from there that are really really serving you in your day-to-day life? It's very challenging, like you said, if you're not someone who's looking to go into law, be a doctor, engineer, then they also need to cater to the students who are more creative or entrepreneurial. I think there's an opportunity there that is sort of being missed. And how many countries did you visit? Where did you go?
I got a ticket around the world, and I just went for a year. So I went to, I spent some time in Egypt, Nepal. Um, I spent some time in um, South America. I went to the Arctic Circle. I travelled across Australia, Thailand, and Asia. And I hiked to Base Camp Everest, and
Amazing.
swam with great white sharks, and I did all the, yeah, amazing things that, I look back now and think that was a time that I didn't take it for granted, because I loved every second. But
Hmm.
just the feeling of being out in the world, not knowing where you're going to sleep that night, just
Yeah.
chatting to people, picking up friends, taking advice, absorbing and observing
Mm.
the world
So, what
around.
did you learn about yourself, Chrissy? Because obviously you're traveling first time by yourself. What are the things you learned during that time at a young age about yourself that you didn't know? And maybe are there some skills that you picked up along the way on that trip?
Yeah, I think what I achieved out there was actually I managed to shake off any sort of kind of um, societal pressure about what group I fit into, and how
Hmm.
I should kind of categorize myself, because I managed to see so many different cultures and ways of working and people. And there's just like an open-mindedness. I think I learned to be open-minded and just kind of go with the flow of being guided through different countries and cultures by the people that were there. And rather than fighting to label myself as what I was in that, in that scenario, in that
Hmm.
country, on my travels, I wasn't someone. I was a passenger that was, what, a tourist who was passing through. And that was a really interesting way of living for a year, because it isn't my normal state. And then naturally, when I came back, I did decide to go to university, and it was a massive shock to the system to go back into a structured, um, hierarchical, group scenario, where there were different groups of people, and based on different terms that, I didn't really, you know, catch up to quick enough. Freshers Week, where you make friends for life in theory, and you kind of, I was felt a little bit like an alien, because all
You
these
already made some friends on your travels, isn't it, as well? Yes.
amazing, but there were groups forming, and on terms that I didn't really understand about,
Hmm.
where you'd been educated, who your parents were, what course you were doing. People were sussing out whether they were their types of people based on these kind of weird societal, like, rules that I'd been out of for a year. And
Hmm.
it was a really big cultural shock, to be honest, to go straight back into a university system after traveling for a year. And whilst I did really enjoy the learning aspect of my degree,
Hmm.
like just gaining knowledge, and I joined the boat club as well, so I learned a brand new skill. I learned how to row. But apart from that, I don't think that I use my degree, or my, anything specific in my business. I don't.
Yeah.
I didn't study business, and
What did you study?
I studied politics and philosophy.
Ah.
Again, because I think I was interested in learning more about the way the world works, and I was trying to figure out, how could I be impactful in this system?
Hmm.
And I like learning, and but didn't want to be a politician, and they're not. Then I didn't go to university to get career skills, but yeah, it's interesting, and that's something I'm really passionate about now because I meet so many people that young people that have maybe either fallen out of education completely or they're struggling with the norm of education system. And I think that the gone are the times, or the time should be gone, where you have to have a certain level or university on your CV at a certain, you know, 2-1 or a first from a Red Brick University in order to be a great candidate in the workforce force, or even go to university at all, to be honest. And some of the most smart, fascinating, and people I've met that have this burning desire to make a change in the world around them, they're not academically smart,
Mm.
and and actually trying to force them into that system is actually going to just delay their ability to get on with their own journey.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's
There's an ongoing argument that or rather debate that I have, because my siblings are all university educated, but they've studied really conventional, so computer science, engineering, doctor. So there are things. I think there's certain um, skills or careers where you do have to go to university. I don't want a doctor or a surgeon operating on me who did not go to uni. That should not be happening. And if that's the path that you're taking, then you're going to have to go all the way to the end. But I've met people, like you said, who've studied history or, philosophy, politics, I know a guy who studied law, but he started his own media agency, who then said, I went to uni to, you know, I was curious about a particular topic and I went into that and I studied it. And that was good. I guess he showed, or she showed, that they could apply themselves to something for 4 years or however long that takes. And then it's like, okay, work ethic is also important. If you're not going to be going down the uni route, like, demonstrate to me that you can hold a job, in that job, develop yourself, whether it's being, starting off as the barista in the cafe, but actually, working your own way up to be the assistant manager in the cafe. I think it's important as well to acknowledge that too. But yeah, I think, especially now that your business is B Corp, but we'll talk about that. I feel like there's a thread of you studying politics and philosophy, and then how it's now run into your own business. Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I do think that's like a really good point, and I do say, as a business owner, with recruiting,
Mm,
I would much, obviously for some roles they need relevant experience, but for entry level roles, and I will pay just as much, if not more, kudos to a CV that's got like you said, like McDonald's or fast food from the age of 16, 17. Like they
yeah,
to work really, really hard at that,
definitely.
than I would with someone that has fantastic A levels but has never had a job, or like I think I very much value people, especially younger people that have gone out and tried to do something.
Yeah.
And I don't think that employers should be so kind of snooty about the places that people live or the education that they've had if it isn't a skill specific role.
Hmm.
So I try not to do that. And I actually, anyone that's had a job as a teenager or a 20 something in a bar, in a cafe, in hospitality, that those people work incredibly hard and learn loads of life skills doing that.
Yeah, that's a good advice to give. Just anyone just trying to do something, demonstrate that you've done something, and that is good enough, I think, even to put on your CV. Even traveling, to go to different countries, navigate through different cultures, languages. um, you know it's amazing and important. So you studied, finished university, and then what? How did you go about starting your business?
Well, I tried to get a couple of mainstream jobs, which didn't work out. I got fired from both of them. um,
Do you know why you got fired?
I got fired for having an opinion, basically, that didn't match the. I just was constantly asking, like, why are we doing it like this? I don't
Yeah.
believe this is how we should be doing things. Have you thought about doing it better? And I think, as a 20 22-year-old, 23-year-old young female. I've got bright blonde hair. I was vivacious. I'm really bubbly. I get
You were
mistreated
misunderstood.
all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that in the jobs that I went into, they weren't open to having someone come in who was still learning and kind of in the lower levels of a business and saying things like, have we thought about doing this better? And at the time I thought it was me. I thought, oh God, I'm not able to conform, and I should stay in, maybe I should think about staying in my place. But I don't think that's the case. At Bird and Blend, I will listen to the feedback of everyone in my business who can come and
Mm-hmm.
talk. And in fact, you often learn the most from the people that are in the shop, on the shop floors, and they can tell you the most about how the things that you think you're doing well in central office when you're planning strategy and I'm setting goals and things for the business. Well, they can tell me immediately if any of that's got through to them, and if it hasn't, then that's feedback that I need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept getting fired, and then I ended up going out to Canada with Mike. So I met Mike, my business partner, at university. We were flatmates,
Mm-hmm.
and we were also started off as friends, and we were also in a relationship by this point. So he wanted to go off to Canada and ski, so I followed him out there, and we both are trained ski instructors. So we did a year in a tiny town in the Canadian Rockies called Fernie, skiing all day, and that was a great experience because the town was, a couple of hundred people, and the school PE was all day. The one school's PE was all day Wednesday, and the kids would just all come and ski all day and run around and snowshoe and plant trees and do just live in the outside. And I think that was amazing to see a small community that was embracing kind of the more important but simpler things in life. And I really enjoyed that time there. And I ended up working for a tea company over the summer because I ran out of money. And as I was working there, I thought I had this idea of trying to build a business in a better way. I tried a few other business ideas that hadn't worked out. And as I started working for this tea company, I thought, why is nobody in the UK doing tea in a versatile way? Because North America, they don't have the attachment to tea that we have here with
Yeah.
in the cake and the china and the tradition and the regality. Over in America, they're very much, in Canada, it's like iced tea and flavored coffee, and actually I thought, well, why is no one focusing on fun and flavor? And in the UK, we're very stuck on our tradition when it comes to tea.
Mm.
And I thought maybe this could be something to think about for this business idea I've got of building a business that is doing things in the right way. And so Mike and I went to the pub, and I wrote on, we were writing on the back of a napkin, like stuck on my wall in the office still, like what we wanted to do. And actually, the things we wrote down on that first day weren't anything to do with tea. They were to do with what type of business we wanted to build and what
Mm-hmm.
would empower and motivate us to want to get out of bed every day. And then
And what were those? What were those?
Well, the mission statement from the start, I didn't know it was a mission statement. I now know it was a mission statement, but we wrote, we looked at the why, the golden circle.
I love that. What is your why? That is, everyone should use as a guiding compass in life. Yeah.
I mean, we did that, and we were like, okay, so the what could be tea,
Mm-hmm.
but what is but why? Why are we doing all of this? And it was to prove that you could build a successful business that bases decisions on people and planet, not just profit, which I didn't know 10 years ago, but that's basically
That's
the tagline
equal.
of Keep Corp.
Yeah.
So yeah, which is very cool. But so it was about building a business in the right way rather than the actual thing we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And tea ended up being the vehicle that we thought we could do this with. It's creative, it's it's fun, everybody drinks tea, it's friendly, it's a consumable product. We could go into retail, grocery, we could explore all these different options
Mm.
online, learn new skills. So we were like, yeah, let's give this a go. But the really key thing for me was the prove bit. It was to prove. So for me, that was what
The
I was
massive P, proof, yeah.
trying to prove something to myself and to the world. And to be honest, over the last couple of years, that's actually become really difficult because I think we have proven that. We have
Yeah,
built a successful business. We have got the accolades that prove that we are, we're profitable. We support our people. We've got our B Corp, and I'm now a little bit at sea with what the purpose is,
yeah,
with what I'm doing. So that's been a really interesting and challenging, headspace to be navigating over the last couple of years.
that's so interesting. That everyone says a business starts over a fag pack in a,
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
pub on a napkin. Who had the napkin? Who owns the napkin? So
I have a napkin.
I know. I think there's a show that was on Amazon. I don't know if it was on Amazon Prime. I don't know where I watched it. It's the mystery one. I don't know if you've watched it. I need to think about it. It'll come back to me where they were all brought to this island, and then
Oh yes, about them. They've got to find the napkin.
yes,
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 I've seen it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly. And you
yeah.
sort of think, oh my goodness, wow, it all comes down to that. Yeah, the best ideas come when you're just in that relaxed creative space. But yeah, circling back to your business. So you've written all of that down, and then how do you start that business? How did it start? You know.
Yeah, so we wrote a business plan, and we just literally Googled how to write a business plan. There was no AI at that point; it could not write it for us. So we got this template, and we're like, right, and we started researching the market and trying to learn as much as possible about that, trying to source suppliers. This is while still skiing in Canada, so we
Mm.
were doing that every evening. And then a couple of months down the line, I said to Matt, I think we should go back home to the UK to see if we can do this. I did look into whether we could do it in Canada, but you need hundreds of thousands of pounds to start a business in Canada as a non-resident. So I ring my mom up and say, can
We're
I come?
coming back.
Can I move back in for 6 months? And Mike did the same with his parents, and they thought we were crazy. To be honest, they weren't impressed.
Were they worried? They were like, "What's going on now?"
I think my mum was maybe worried. I don't know. Mike's parents not amused, and they're all very supportive now, by the way. But at the beginning, I think it was just kind of like, will you two just decide what you're doing and stop, flip flopping all over the place?
Mm.
You're two very smart people, and you should be doing these things. And we
Yeah.
were a bit like,
I think
uh,
they just wanted you to make a decision. I think whatever it is you decide to do, just make a decision, stick with it, and then say that's what you're going to do for the,
yeah,
big part of your life. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
moved back in.
yeah. I moved back in, and we basically had about £5,000 savings, I think, at the time. We were saving to buy a truck in Canada. So yeah, we had that, and we just spent it on the first initial bit of tea. I created 20 tea blends with somebody that I'd found on the internet, who did blending, and created these recipes. Didn't know anything about tea other than my 6 months in this company, and we started taking them to. Well, first of all, we did a focus group in the garden with my mum's work colleagues,
Who
where they
drink lots of tea? Yeah.
taste the teas and give us feedback. Um, so we did that, and then we started saying yes to We started calling markets, festivals, pop-up shops. So we're like, we don't have any money. We could give you 50 quid to have a pitch. Can we come and tell people about our tea, sample our tea, etc.? We did that all summer, and it was just an amazing summer, to be honest. The feedback was amazing. We sold out of loads of tea. It was going really well. People were asking, how do I keep in touch with you? How do I buy it? So we started gathering email addresses
Mhm.
because of that. And I did a little community newsletter to keep them up to date with what we were doing. And I got a big commerce site and tried to teach myself. It had 2 pages on it. This is in 2012, 2 pages, the home page and the shop page.
I
And
love
that was it. And it just went really, really well. And we started noticing we were getting these really dedicated kind of fans, only a couple of thousand people, but very, very connected.
that.
return rates, and we're like, oh, I think we're onto something here. So I came down to Brighton. I'm from Nottingham originally, so we're living in Nottingham at this point. Came down to Brighton to do the food festival. I'd never been to Brighton before, and the weekend was amazing. We sold out of everything. We're like, what? You've got a green MP. The local indies. I talked to nearly all the people in the shops.
So you found like a community, you felt connected. Yeah.
I thought, I think we need to open a store, and I think it needs to be in Brighton. And we moved down the next month, and we, as soon as we started thinking about having retail stores, that was it. There was no question. We just knew we wanted to do that, and that was in the early days. People were saying, why are you going into the high street? Don't why are you doing that? This is silly. And we had the 4 major supermarkets contact us in the first 18 months to say, will you create these teas for supermarkets? And we turned them down to go into physical retail. And again, that was another moment where people said, what are you doing? You're crazy. You're not following the structure of what is good business sense. It just wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted a people business. We wanted to create jobs. We wanted to have human connection, and we wanted to have that creativity and fun and in our lives. So that's kind of how that's guided our decisions since, to be honest.
That's amazing. I was just picking on the threads, and the reason why I was like, talk to me about how you started your business is we need to get away from this, debunk the myth that people think, hey, there's a golden goose somewhere, that you have to have some business education or acumen. You went online, found out what to do, had an interest, discovered your why, and just took it from there. And the fact that you thought, oh my God, I have to collect email addresses because, I need to build a newsletter. Fundamental basics of how do you build your community. And the thing with tea, I think you made the right decision in terms of not going with retailers, because if you think of classic tea houses, you go into Harrods or to Fortnum and Mason, what makes it interesting is that there's a space where you can actually have someone make the blend for you, etc. And then, of course, if you happen to have that experience and then can buy online or with a major retailer, that's then the knock-on effect. But I feel like you have to have that experience first as well. So tips to anyone out there who's looking to start a business: obviously save up a bit of money. That does help, by actually working, write all your ideas down and use Google. Ask people and just do it, I think is a big thing.
Yeah, I think just do it is a great advice, because if I'd have known that there was such a mountain to climb and I'd have thought about it, I'd have sunk. But I didn't. I just thought, one day at a time, let's get some stuff done. I'll figure the rest out later. And just, I think another piece of advice is just not to get pushed off your, like, if you can figure out your why, that is massive. It's going to ground you, and not to get swayed off that by well-meaning advice. And there are creative ways of going about things. Like, when we were looking at where to open the first store, we had like, oh, you're going to need 3 years of accounts. You're going to need architectural drawings. You're going to need an agent to find the location and negotiate and all of this. We just went and visited cities that
and observed.
We wanted to hang out in, and we and observe in the rain, in the sunshine, at the weekend. We'd count people with buggies. We'd count people with student passes. We'd ask people why they were there, and then we would just scour.
Classic market research.
Exactly. It's not, and it's. I know we've come on so far with marketing, especially digital marketing, and it's really great. But sometimes just going back, and it sounds sparkly and shiny to talk about all these, advanced technology and things like that.
But sometimes it's back to basics, isn't it?
Basic.
Yeah.
We're still humans. You're still trying to speak to humans and sell to humans. So there's a lot you can do with not a lot of money and just yourself as a human, I believe.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast. There's a guy called Reese Barbara, and he's got a business called MDV, so it's Manier Devoir, and he says that's how he sort of also comes up with all the designs. He literally sits in an area where there are lots of young people or his demographic and watches them to see what they're wearing, and then sketches or to see what the trends are, literally in there in situ, seeing what people are doing. So classic market research, you need to go out there, be with the customer or your target market and just make it happen. So you opened the first store. How many stores do you have now then?
14,
Wow.
soon to be 20.
Amazing. Amazing. Amazing.
Terrifying. Terrifying.
So let's talk about your work ethic and I guess also your leadership qualities, because we talked about when you're growing up how you thought you were a rebel, always questioning, asking is there a better way to do things. What are some of the skills that you think you've learned over the years that are helping you as a business owner and a leader in your business?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I've been on a kind of a
A
phased
journey.
journey. Yeah, at the start it was learning all the actual skills of business, how to do all the jobs and figure out how to the best way of doing things. Everything from opening a store to operating a till to selling at an event to you know cleaning schedules, how to load a van to go to a festival, how to pass a health and safety certification, every single kind of task, how to read a P&L, how to
Mm,
write a rota. I had to learn all of those myself.
mhm,
Um, so I learned a lot, and then I started. That was the phase. So I was just doing at that point, and then it got to the point where we had 3 stores. We went from 1 to 3, and it was like, right now, my job isn't to do; it's to teach others to do. Well, recruit. First of all, I had to learn how to recruit. First time I'd ever done it. Um, and how to induct those people and how to pass on not only the training of skills but also the processes and structures that would serve them. So that was a period of a couple of years that was enjoyable but was a learning curve. I thought someone told me once that people are the hardest thing about business, but the most rewardable but the hardest. And
mm.
I just thought to myself, well, I'm a nice person and I like people. I'll be fine. And you know what? It was a shock to realize that there's so much more to effective leadership than being a nice person.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
working with nice people, because
Yeah.
I think I'm very able to recruit a decent person, but that is not at all really the crux of getting the most out of somebody and making them feel empowered and fulfilled and performing. It's
Yeah.
completely different.
It's completely different, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't got to I'm not perfect at that yet, but I had to learn very quickly those skills. And then as we've grown even bigger over the last couple of years, it's been more about inspiring, I think, and driving forward meaningful strategic change. So
Hmm.
now my role is, I'm still heavily involved in all the blend creation, product MPD, and product and creativity is still my department. I haven't let go of that, but I wear a more strategic hat when it comes to, I now have to direct and lead and inspire a senior leadership team, which again is a whole different ball game. Um, and that's the bit that's been the most challenging, I think, because you've got the luxury as a founder when you're trying to learn how to lead um, people in the business, but you're still very actively there with them day to day. They get to know you and understand you, and
Mm.
also the element of you're the founder. They admire you and they're going to listen because you're the founder. So I got away for a few years of not having to completely hone my leadership skills because I got this benefit of being a founder, of being able to walk in and say, I like it like this, and someone going, okay, well, because he's the founder. Yeah, okay, fine. But with a senior leadership team, you're, in theory, you're building a team of people who are more experienced than you in those departments, who should feel welcome to bring their expertise and guide it and put their mark on it. And so being a leader for them is a completely different I think people think it's easier because they're more experienced and professional and mature and adults. I use little quotation marks, but I found it harder than the perhaps the earlier days where I had more junior team members and they
Yeah.
were connected to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Because you're having to, what you're doing now is you're having to say, well, this is my vision. you've signed up to my vision, you're coming along on the journey, but now I'm entrusting you, delegating for you to say, go and execute, and I have to be okay with the proposals and the execution as well, because it's delivering the vision. Now, you may have delivered the vision a different way, but you have to respect your team in the way they're delivering it as well, with all the mission and purpose and so on. So it's a different way of thinking and leading, isn't it, as well?
It is, and I think I've had to learn, or I'm still learning, that I don't have to be the only person in the room that has an opinion and says the first thing and gets it right. And I think going back again to my teenage years, like I've built a business off of that desire. That's what's been driving me. Like, get it right first time, fix stuff for people, support them, be the voice in the room, be a leader, be a trailblazer. And I'm only just coming to terms with the thought of, well, actually, if I step back a bit, and can I encourage other people's contributions, discussions? What can I facilitate here to get the best out of others? If I just sit back a bit and
Yeah.
let that happen, but it's not my natural style, and I'm still discovering whether that is something that makes me feel good and inspired and as purposeful as when I was kind of carving my own path.
Mm-hmm.
So still TBC on that, but it's
Yeah, you're
definitely
still on a journey, you know? Yeah. And it's a good one. It's good to know that you're evolving. Progress is not linear. It's ups and downs and learnings and different phases, different seasons, and that's okay as well. So that's a good thing that you've got. I think got a very good self-awareness. That's really important. It's a good skill, trait to have, because it means you acknowledge that you're in a different phase of your life, from a business perspective too.
Thank you.
Let's talk about self-care, because I mean, you've done a lot, Chrissy. I mean, festivals, opening shops, businesses, moving, traveling. How do you take care of you? How do you get back to Chrissy? And obviously, the business is a very big part of you, but self-care as a woman, I think, is a very important thing, especially if we talk about mental health and how people are burning out or doing too much. Tell me about that for you.
Um, I'm starting to get better at that, but for the first 6, 7 years of the business, there was no Chrissy. I was one and the same of Burn and Blend. I lived it, I breathed it, I slept, everything. 365 days a year, 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. I was working on or in that business, and I did love it,
Hmm.
and I was aware of the sacrifices I was making. I missed friends' weddings, and I missed families' funerals, and I missed, summer holidays, and I, but it felt, I don't know, it was very exciting, and it was
Felt
something
right.
off the ground,
Mm.
and I loved every second of it. Um, but also being in the business with Mike, who we got married during that time as well. We both kind of realised about 6 years in, wait a minute, we're not looking after ourselves here, and there needs to be there's a triangle of the business, then there's our relationship, and then there's me,
Mm.
us as an individual, and each one of those needs to be filled and nurtured and looked after. And we were failing massively on looking after ourselves and our relationship. Um, and that was a kind of turning point for me, where we had some really honest discussions about whether we thought we had the capacity to support ourselves, our relationship, and the business. And we decided that we didn't think that we could do that, and something was going to have to give. And at that point was the point that we came to the tough decision to separate. So we actually separated. And at that point, it was sad, um, but we still passionately believed that we could run the business together, and that it still had and we were great business partners.
Mm.
And so it was very difficult, but I presume it's a bit like if you have children. Like, we had a child, basically. We couldn't the business, we couldn't just not get on. But that gave us both some breathing room, because we started supporting each other as business partners, and covered for each other a bit more, so that we started to get our holidays back and our evenings back, and we would have a bit of breathing room to think about ourselves. And and at that point I started, picked back up my hobbies that I'd lost before, running and walking with the dog and rowing, and started to try and make friends in Brighton, because it was, I'd lived there for 4 years by now and didn't have any friends. So started investing in the things that mattered to me slowly. And although that does fall off a cliff a little bit when things get stressful at work, I am much better at that now. And the other thing I would say is mindset, because
Hmm.
I've spent years, and I know other business founders, especially women, a lot say, I don't have the time to look after myself. I don't have the time to go for a run. I don't have the time to go go get my hair done. I don't have the time to study something that I want to learn about outside of work, whatever. And actually, we do have the time. We just choose to give our time to our
It's a
business.
choice, isn't it? Yeah.
I spend so much time giving to this business. I could give some of that time back to myself. I just have to shift my mindset there, which is really hard to do. But I've been trying to do that more. Um, and I've done 10 years of this now. I think the time has come where I do deserve for it to work a bit more for me. I should get a holiday. I should get evenings, and I should be able to afford my rent. Like now, I've done the years of sacrifice, and you know that's important as well, to put yourself first. But it can be really hard when founding and running a purposeless business where you've given everything to it, to put yourself first.
Yeah. And thank you for being so vulnerable. I think you're so right. In the early years when you're starting a business, it is a sacrifice. You've made a choice that this is your baby. In order to grow it, these are the things that need to be done. They're not suddenly 20 employees there who are helping you. It's you wearing many hats, and it is a sacrifice. I think that's also one realization is you can't have it all. You're going to have to give up something to develop something else. And once you realize that, you work towards it. I think what you've done is built the business, then had that epiphany moment and said, right, okay, now what about me and what needs to change, and difficult decisions. Sometimes it is, changing the relationships that you have in your life to become a better version of yourself. And it's good to share, because I think sometimes, Chrissy, we don't see that from women being vulnerable and explaining what's actually happened. We hear about all the successes and the appearances, and you see this superwoman and you think, oh, that's what I need to be as well. But behind, you're treading water. So it's important to share that too. And so you've talked about obviously key relationships in your life, that it's important to nurture that, whether it's community with your business or with friends, with family. Um, who are some key relationships in your life, and really what is it that they add, or how do they add value to your life at this point in time?
Great question. I think my friends, I've got a small friendship group. Well, they're mostly individuals that I've picked up at various points. So, one from school, one from traveling, one from uni, one from sport. And so I don't have a big friendship group that's all from one place, but I've managed to carve relationships there that I really value. And they're all different, but they're people that have navigated different periods of my life and with me, and grown with me, and who are smart, you know, creative thought partners, really. And that's what I've tried to have in my life, that I've over the years, going into my 30s, I did have a bigger group of friends that were perhaps more social touch. And I thought, you know what, I know my value, and I know what friendships I want to invest in, and which the ones that make me feel brilliant and really add to my life, and I think I can add to their life. So I really nurtured those, and they help me. So if I'm a bit stuck on something, they will help with advice and but more importantly, they understand me enough to give me a bigger context, and they've been through phases of my life and journey to offer me that feedback. And as a founder, I don't get feedback from anyone really. I don't really get challenged. Well, yeah, I don't really get challenged. My business partner Mike does, but apart from that, so I really value their opinion, even though none of them, run their own businesses. I have recently developed relationship in my new community. I've just moved home into a new area, and I also have a new partner, and I think that's been interesting to make friends and form a relationship with people that don't necessarily care that I own and run Burn and Blend. That's been mad because everyone else has been on the journey with me, and then I've met these new people, including my current partner, and they're obviously very fascinated and proud, but because I've changed so much as a person over the years, it's less my full identity is it's not Bird and Blend now. So they're able to offer me, reassurance that there are things about me that are special and worth celebrating and leaning into that are nothing to do with being a powerful businesswoman, which has been an
Refreshing, isn't it, as well?
it was a bit of a shock, to be honest.
Yeah.
Found myself thinking, well, but you love me anyway. If I could do anything, and you still want to hang out with me, and I've never had that feeling before. Probably because of my stuff, not anyone else's.
Mm.
So that's been interesting. And then my relationship with Mike is a fundamental one in my life, and I think that we're very different, and we can really, really, really frustrate each other. But the frustrations and the challenges that we've had over the years, I believe, are what make us quite a special and magical partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that I would have got the business to where it is today without such a interesting partnership with someone. So yeah, they're probably, and my mum as well. Obviously, I can't
Yeah.
mention her.
I think the relationship with your business partner is because when you started the business, you had written down your core values. So if your driving force was just money, just making it up money, then that probably would have been, you would have probably separated and the business maybe would not have been as successful. But your value proposition of what you both believed in and what you wanted, that's been a guiding compass. And that's what's held it through and through. But yeah, that's so interesting. I also have a friendship group where they don't care what I do for work or my job and so on. They just see me as me, and I love that. I just, it's can be open, honest, and that's so important as well. Let's talk about your public speaking engagements. You've got your own, web page dedicated. Let's talk about that because I've been trying to understand and also help younger people understand how important networking and mentoring, building community, finding a mentor, etc. And I guess public speaking is a way of engaging with people and imparting knowledge. But what was your impetus for saying, this is something I'd like to do? And what are some of the things that you're up to right now?
I think it's come over time, to be honest. I started off getting requests at like smaller, maybe business conferences locally to come and talk about the founding story. People are fascinated by the founding story of Burn and Blend and the story behind it. And I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that to be an asset or of the business. I thought people would be into the tea and the team members and the service. But there's this fascination with the founding story and who I am as a person, which I didn't expect. I get feedback that I started to get feedback that it was very refreshing to have the truth behind the challenges of starting a business. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. So this is obviously something that people get a lot out of, and so I enjoyed it. I enjoy talking about things I'm passionate about, and So I started to do more and more, and then it's kind of grown from there. And at the moment, I'm leaning more into that because I think that's an area where I can continue to add value as maybe my leadership team grow up more. What is my role, and if I can get out there and spread the message about Burn and Blend, and maybe inspire some people, as well as hopefully create some customers, then and I enjoy it, and that sounds great. I also really enjoy attending them because there's always like people like yourself that are there, and I've made some amazing connections, and I've learned so much. I went to one last week that was about sustainability and social impact, and I was one of the speakers. But the other I learned so much, and I came away feeling so inspired. So that's why I enjoy them. I'm also trying to do a bit more in the area of young people. So we hold uh, sessions at our HQ down in, we call it the Nest, down in Worthing, where we've worked with some local schools and charities to have um, young adults come in to the building and have an experience of the tea, but also to have some coaching. We don't do the coaching, but the charities and schools do. And then I do some speaking there about my journey and how it's different, and what I look for from young people applying for jobs, and a couple of my team that have grown up through Burn and Blend, from entry level jobs with very different backgrounds and have worked their way up.
That's so important. Yeah.
And tell them, I don't have a degree, and etc. etc. So I really enjoy those ones, and I also really enjoy the conversations about women in business, and I don't think I'm very articulate and able to authentically talk about the founding story and my passion with supporting alternative ways into business or employment for young people. I'm not so confident yet with my eloquence around what I'm trying to say about women in the business space, and also impact on the planet when it comes to sustainability. And I believe in those things, and I operate from a place of authenticity. But when I get asked to do those events, I'm still learning how to articulate in a way that will get the point across and inspire others to make a change. So it's been something I've been thinking about recently. How can I best leave my impression in those spaces?
Yeah, yeah. That will come over time, or maybe even some coaching as well. But you're right. You sort of, the more events you attend where it's all about impact, and you want your words and your message to have meaning, and not just waffle and say, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I should have actually do you know what I mean, where you say this was an important event where I should have delivered with great diction and message and so on. So yeah, I think it'll come over time, because honestly, Chris, you're just listening to you and your story. Do you know why you are so interesting and empowering, inspiring? Is because it's relatable, and it's now. You're not a business that started 60 years ago where we're like, oh, here they go again, this is how they started it, and I can't relate to that time period, where it's something that's of now. And that's what the next generation need to say, look, this wasn't 50 years ago, 40 years ago, this was just 10 years ago, and these are the tools that I had. You didn't talk about looking in an encyclopedia, you said you Googled. It's like, so it's things that are relatable and tangible, and people can grasp and say, right, I get that. I see myself in you. This is something I can actually do. So yeah, that's pretty good. And also, let's talk about I don't know if you're allowed to talk about the show where you've been public speaking on. Is that something you can divulge?
Yeah, it's just come out actually. It's called Ready Set Startup. It's a new Amazon Prime show that is a bit like Dragon's Den / The Apprentice. So contestants, young entrepreneurs, well, not just young entrepreneurs, come onto the show, 10 of them, and they get set a different task each episode, and they get eliminated. So a bit like The Apprentice. And the judges are, but like Dragon's Den, so they're leading business people. And they invited me to set the task for episode 4. So they came into Burn and Blend, and we were filming, and we set them the task to do, and then I was a guest judge on the episode. So I helped give them feedback, and help decide who should go home that episode. So yeah, I got a glimpse into the world of TV, which was full on but very very cool experience. And I was kind of balancing how to put the brand across in the best light. They were in the stores, the team members were there, we were on camera. How do we put Bird and Blend across in the right way? And then I was on the judging panel, so I was thinking, how do I give them authentically good feedback, but also say the things that are most likely to get me on the show?
Yeah, exactly. Because we don't want her now.
So, but it was a great experience, yeah, and you can find it on Amazon Prime. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of drama. The contestants, especially in our episode, they're fighting, they're making mistakes. There's tears. There's all sorts. Yeah, it's really.
Okay, that's enough spoilers now. We need people to just go out and watch the show. Were you also surprised and impressed by the different candidates? Because obviously it's startup, it's entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think some of them were and still are just doing such a good job in their like fledgling businesses, and some of them are still very much chasing those down and running them and doing a great job. Um, there are a couple that were probably there just for a bit of TV fame, I think, probably, but they did bring, the energy and the characters, and also they probably have learned things, and they've probably learned from each other, because a lot of the tasks are about team leadership and
Mm,
communication, and so I don't think you have to have a completely honed business idea to necessarily learn things about yourself as an individual or as a leader, or as an entrepreneur. So
yeah.
yeah, it was really interesting watching them tackle the challenge.
Oh, amazing. Really good. I will check it out for sure. So let's talk about Trailblazer takeaway tips. You've shared so many nuggets. If you were to impart, if we were to circle back, three things that you think you'd love to share um, for the audience.
I
I mean,
think
some have shared like six or seven, so knock yourself out, Chrissy.
I think being kind to yourself over the years, and just trying to get to peace with the fact that you will not get everything right. It's a first time, you don't have to. And that over the years, and I'm talking like decades, I'm still learning, and I'm still growing, and I'm still figuring it out. So I guess I would advise someone like myself, or an entrepreneur, to like dial up the passion and the speed and um the courage and the rebellious things in business, because that's what's going to get you off the ground. But just be kinder with the pace on yourself. You don't have to figure everything out about yourself immediately. It takes time and experience to figure that out, and it's okay to get it wrong. You're not infallible, and that's okay. um, I think the second one would be about people. People are just at the heart of literally everything. Like, no matter what you want to do, start a business, be in a business, travel, whatever it is you want to do, you need to acknowledge the impact that you can have on the people around you, and what they can add to you, and how to make that work. And it be a good balance between putting across your wants and needs, but also creating spaces for other people to contribute to, well, I mean, ultimately your life, but give them room to share things with you and grow and be open-minded and things. I think going in with any sort of traditional view that being a good leader or entrepreneur means you have to tell people what you want doing is
Mm,
just not put you in a good. You're not going to get people that want to follow you or work with you or be on the journey with you. You're just going to have people that feel like they have to do exactly what you say because they're frightened to not do. And I don't think that fosters um, long term happiness, or the ability to make a positive impact um, as a community. And I think maybe just thinking about your mindset and giving yourself permission to switch that up. Like, you have the permission to go and spend time with your family, on yourself, with your friends. You have the permission to not spend as much time with friends that maybe don't serve you. You have the permission to take the day off. You have the permission to go to the doctors because you've put it off for 6 months. Like, these are things that you have to give yourself permission to do. And if you need someone to give you permission, I'll give you permission. Yeah, you need to go and do those things. Yeah, and if you're a young person or someone thinking about starting a business, I think just you can do it. Just make the first step, get started, and you can figure the rest out later. They'd be my 4 tips, I think.
KRISI, those are amazing gems. I'm holding on to dial up the passion, dial it up, just turn it up a notch. KRISI Smith, this has been amazing. I will share obviously all the socials where people can find you, see how they can find your amazing teas, the blends which we've tried and tested in the office. Still talking about as well. It's been brilliant having you. I'm certain you are inspiring some young woman out there who's figuring their life out, or whatever age they're trying to figure themselves out. So it's been a pleasure having you on the Trailblazers Experience podcast. For everyone listening out there, please remember to follow, share, like, subscribe. We can only grow and inspire more women out there if you tell another woman or man about the podcast. So thank you so much, KRISI.
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
Brilliant. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.